what you have up here and then what you have in front of you is a summary of the proposals we got in. And so we got in a total of 5 proposals, and we've got each of the banks listed here. And what we do as FA to you all, we review each of those proposals, and we want to summarize that for you all so you see first and foremost what's the interest rate that's being proposed, and then also some of the other relevant terms and conditions like your prepayment provision or prepayment flexibility, any fees that they may be charging upfront, bank or legal fees, as well as some of the other, any sort of ongoing terms or conditions or covenants that they require, send in your financials to them annually, things like that. When you have a bank that provides you with the lowest interest rate and prepayment flexibility and pretty straightforward terms and conditions, you've got you're checking all the boxes. You've got a home run. And that's not always the case. And many times the lowest interest rate provider has kind of a crazy term or condition or covenant there. In your case with the city, the bank that provided the lowest rate, BB&T, had a very clean term sheet in terms of the standard terms and conditions that we would expect. They're providing the city with prepayment flexibility on that loan. And so you can see the 5 bids in terms of the interest rate. The lowest, as I mentioned, BB&T, 2.51%. The highest was 2.95%. We had several in between there. BB&T, you all recognize, I'm sure. Some of the other banks, Key Bank, Pinnacle Bank, those are 2 banks that are not really located in South Carolina. I don't think they have any branches or stores here. They are really just interested in lending to municipalities, and so they are banks that are just on our list. We've worked with them before. Capital One, same as from the credit card commercials. They also do lending to municipalities. And Sterling National Bank, New York-based bank that also does lending, and they've done several deals in South Carolina as well. And so those were the 5 in, and BB&T lowest rate. That rate, 2.51%, is for a 15-year term. So the city's going to amortize that debt over a 15-year period at a 2.51% rate. That is locked in, fixed rate, and assuming your approval of second reading tonight, we're prepared to close that bond issue on Wednesday, November 1st, at which point you all would have proceeds in the bank to start spending on your stormwater system needs. To give you some perspective on that 2.51% rate, in some of the capital planning we've done that y'all have seen before, we were assuming a 4% rate. We knew that was very conservative, had some cushion built in, but wanted to be conservative, so well under that estimated rate. And that 250 rate is a great rate for 15-year money. We were really pleased with the interest rate that came in. I think the other rates are very good as well, but we were happy with getting in 5 proposals. Doing a 15-year financing kind of weeds out certain banks because many don't want to lend that long on a fixed rate basis. Really, really happy to get in 5 proposals and very happy at the 251 rate. And so I think it's a great deal for the city, and again helps you all get kick-started on your stormwater needs and locked in interest cost for a 15-year period at a really low rate.
I noticed that BB&T has a call provision, I guess after August 1st of 23. I mean, why would I understand call provisions in terms of bonds, but for investment, but why would a bank have a call provision?
So that call provision is for you all, actually. That is for you. You all have the flexibility to prepay that loan should you choose to either lower your interest rate or if you wanted to just pay it off sooner. And so that is a prepayment flexibility for you all. They cannot take that loan away from you. That loan's locked in for 15 years to you all.
All right, thank you. Good. I understand that.
Any other questions from council?
Good job.
You need council to take action on this particular agenda item. We're going to wait till we get to the ordinance.
This is for your review, and then the ordinance that you may remember from first reading, that provided certain not to exceed parameters, and Gary will be better explain this, but you all delegated to city manager to determine the bank and the rate, again subject to certain not to exceed parameters, which these all fit well under.
Yep.
That's item 2 under old business.
Right.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Number 4 under presentations, an update on Aiken stat by Chief Branco. And Jennifer, I think you're going to be. Chief, that was a big day we had yesterday. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, Council, our City Manager, for your most important participation. So, thank you. Today we're here to present where we are with Aiken stat. As you know, several months ago, we moved forward with the purchase of some software and to better determine the location of and more accurate depiction of the crime that is actually going on in real time in Aiken. And our IT department, as well as Jennifer within our department, have been working with BCS, who is headquartered here in Aiken, the software vendor, and they're going to give you a little snapshot of where we are. We still have some implementation before we're able to move forward. Once that implementation has been completed with the software, then there's an expected time for training throughout the department, as well as some policy development. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Okay, with this program package, there are actually 4 what we call portals that we'll have access to. 3 of which are here. We have available tonight to show y'all a little preview of. The 4th one is still under construction, and we haven't actually got to see that one yet. It's a little bit more of the complicated one. But first, I'll start out with what we call the Aiken Public Safety Crime IMAP. This is our community-facing, our public-facing portal. It's very easy to use. I like it because it's something that most people can log into and just start using without any kind of training whatsoever. Although we do plan on having some public training sessions for people in case they want to come learn a little bit more about how to use it. As soon as you log in, there's a little disclaimer that you would have to go through first. It's just basically explains a little bit about the limitations of the data and where it comes from. You would click OK, and then it would send you to this screen. It defaults to the city of Aiken at large, the entire city limits, and it shows that right there in the kind of the left corner. It says city limits. That's what you're searching on. Your search options at this time, it lists city limits, everything inside the city, and it tells you the date range there underneath that. You're looking at October 23rd to October 30th. You can change those date ranges if you like. You can just select the drop down and it'll give you some different options there to select different date ranges if you'd like. And then under that, it's asking you which types of crimes you would like to search on. You can limit your results to specific things, or you can search on everything. And then you would just hit search, and then your summary results show up down here. What you're seeing on the right-hand side is just a geographical representation of what you would see in your summary. So if you just like to kind of see what things look like, see where the crimes are occurring, you've got your geographical representation there. Each dot, see like up here, it looks like a little money bag. That's a crime. You can click on it. So a little bit more information will come up there for you, telling you exactly what type of crime. It's a crime against property. It was a larceny. It occurred on the 29th, and that's the event number for that incident. So if you wanted to get even more information from the department, you could bring that case number up to us, and we could print that incident report out for you. The clusters, the groups that you see that look like numbers, that would be 4 or 13 crimes occurred in that general area. You can zoom in a little bit to kind of show more, but basically what that's showing you is that it's just they're too close together to represent geographically because they'd just be on top of each other anyway. So you can click on them, and it shows you 1 of 4. It's a crime against property. You have a residential burglary, and then you have an assault, and then you have a B&E auto. So you can flip through each one, and it tells you exactly which crimes are considered in that block of numbers. Basically, how we have it set up currently is you see how you can zoom in and get a little closer. This is as close as you're going to be able to zoom. We tried to create a little bit of a balance there between being able to see exactly where things are, but not being able to zoom directly down into an address, just to create a little bit of privacy for victims. But you would still be able to see pretty clearly of the area that each of these crimes are occurring in. Again, you can click over here in your summary box. This is the same information and just a more of a straight, flat data sort of construct that you see on the right-hand side in your geographic construct. It's the exact same information, so it depends on kind of how you would choose to want to look at it. Now, real quick, you can also have the functionality that you can print the map as well, so if you wanted to print it for whatever type of reason you would want to use it for later, you can print that. And it'll give you the option to actually print it or, you know, display it like a printable PDF. So that's what you would see. That's what you're going to get when you print that. The next two portals are internal or public safety portals only. They would be ones that only officers would be able to access. And the first one is our vehicle monitor. You see all the little blue dots there, those represent vehicles that we have. It's live, so to speak. So we have, you see where all of our vehicles are on the screen there. This little blue box here is just at a glance, it allows you to see we have one incident that apparently is taking 5 units right now. So you can click, we can just get a little bit more information. This again shows those units that we have active at this time and sort of what their statuses are. We have 2 at destination, 2 en route, and 1 at a hospital transport. So it's just something simple for us that we would have access to at a glance, see sort of what we got going on and what kind of incidents we currently have. For larceny.
So you had 5 vehicles at that larceny?
I don't think that's accurate, I'm going to be honest with you, because it doesn't show all 5 of them there. It looks like basically we have 2 at destination on that one call.
Okay.
So I don't know, again, we're still in what I call our beta testing of this. They send us a version and we play with it and we kind of test it like I am now. I have access to our actual live CAD, and what I do is I pull them both up at the same time and I say, well, right now it's showing I have 5 units on this call, but I only have 2. And so they're still working out the logistics of exactly how to get them 100% synced up. So we also have a hospital transport, so that's one of the 5. So we have 2 officers en route. Well, we have 2 at destination, 2 en route, and 1 at the hospital. So that's your 5 that are on some type of activity. So that is actually accurate. I don't know if they're all.
They're not on the same.
No, I don't think so. So when we must have got the call, there must be another incident that's not coming through that they would be on. The last one that I can show you tonight is just what we call our CompStat portal. And this is basically what we will be using on a weekly basis for our, let's say, crime analysis, so to speak, activities. It shows that at a glance, the city, we can change that to show our beats. We have 5 patrol beats that we use to assign units, so we can turn that on. We can turn on the city as a whole. And basically, the features over here that you would just click on and off, it's a list of all the incident report types that we can generate. And say we want to look at assaults for this week. We would click assaults, and they, again, on the right-hand side appear geographically. The bars on top show whether or not at a glance that's a closed case or an open case. If it's red, it's closed. If it's green, it's open. You can get a little more information there by clicking on that. Again, it's the same information, again, in just a more flat data type representation versus the geographical link. And then lastly, you can at a glance see, as far as assaults go, you have your current week, which is 3. You have your previous week, the week before that, and then same time a year ago, how many assaults we had. So you can see at a glance how we're trending just by one click of a button. It makes things much faster.
Is drugs one of the categories that you're looking at?
Narcotics, yes, sir.
Oh, there you go, okay.
Chief, I'm sorry.
These are UCR reportable offenses, so you'll have multiple, what you would consider different statutes within that group of narcotics. That's just the overall, what we report, different statutes under narcotics is the UCR, so these are broken down in our UCR.
Well, if you get multiple charges, which seems to be the case when you look at the newspaper, you get a DUI, oftentimes it's a little marijuana, it's driving while suspended, and a few other things. What you take the most serious to put it to lead there?
Each offense should be represented independently.
Oh, each offense, okay.
Not just the most serious.
Now, this is primarily, the system, as I understand, is primarily for your staff
Yes,
Chief?
staff only.
So you can get a sense of where the trends are and adjust your service to meet those issues.
That's correct. As you know, we've been working with Wes to keep the public informed as well, and so that was a component of this software, so we're trying to enhance that as well.
Okay.
Chief, talk a little bit about the application of this for the officers and men and women how they can use this to, I guess, obviously more knowledge allows them to do a more thorough job of it. But how is this applicable to our officers?
Real-time information to be able to use in roll calls, to use during the shift, to use the night before, the week before, to see those trends so we can make sure we're pinpointing the extra patrols that we need to be making to seeing those trends in that crime. And so hopefully, and it's been proven in other places, it will be more proactive in the prevention of crime.
Very good.
And I'd just like to add, if I could, Mr. Mayor, that I want to applaud our chief and senior staff who have been very open, absolutely very open to implementing this system of database management. Jennifer Hayes has done a great job at really learning this system, and kind of an interesting story. We're looking for success stories around the country in database management. Certainly we know the well-known stories in New York City and others, but we were looking for a software package that might assist us in the gathering of data, in the utilization of data. Come to find out, one of the real success models came from a business person who lives in a place called Aiken, South Carolina. So this was kind of an interesting twist that we were able to utilize the services of a local business person who has a wonderful product. This is going to allow us to utilize data more effectively. It should empower officers in public safety to offer suggestions to make changes. The bottom line is our goal is to reduce crime. So the data allows us to consider strategies from the chief on down.
That's right.
Where our staff should be encouraged to innovate, to be creative, to see what works in real-time fashion. This is really exciting, and this is working all across the country, and I cannot say enough about our chief and our leadership team who have so quickly embraced this and is off and running with it.
Well, through recommendations and guidance from you, we did read Chapter 4.
Giuliani's book, thank you.
Are you hooked in with the sheriff's office on this?
No, sir, this is only our CAD and records management. We have been working with the sheriff's office on figuring out a way to share that information faster and better. As we looked at our new software package, we were actually working with the sheriff's office to be able to come alongside with us and go into the same package so we could share it easier. We haven't gotten to that point yet, but we're still in conversation.
Chief, thank you very much. Jennifer, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
On to old business. Number 1 is discussion of appointees to various city boards, commissions, and committees. Anybody for consideration tonight, Mr. Clem?
Council has 19 pending appointments to fill vacancies on our various committees and commissions. No appointments were presented for Council's consideration this evening, although we did receive the attached letter of resignation from Mr. Paternetti from the Board of Zoning Appeals, and of course he is a valuable and valued member of that board. We were saddened to see his resignation, but that will need to be filled soon.
There was no consideration for
the
So
at this time, I'll ask for any names to be considered at the next
I
meeting.
have a nomination, but I would like to echo your comments about Pat Paternetti. 11 years is a long time to serve on a demanding committee, and I thought he did an outstanding job.
Absolutely.
I'd like to renominate Charles Herbst to the Design Review Board.
Okay.
And I'd like to reappoint Susan DeBrule to the Planning Commission.
Okay, very good. Any other for consideration in our next meeting? Very good.
I do, Mr. Mayor, I have a comment. On the list, there are 3 appointments that are due from me, but we had proposed changing the date of the appointments due. So Councilman-elect Gerardo has 3 appointments to make, and they're shown on here, and I've moved all of those to his side of the ledger.
All right, moving down to old business to number 2. Number 2 is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance for the issuance of stormwater system revenue bonds for an amount not to exceed $2,500,000. By title, a series ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of a stormwater system revenue bond to be designated Series 2017, and the principal amount of not exceeding $2,500,000 of the City of Aiken, South Carolina, and other matters related thereto. Is there a motion?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Edward. Thank you, Gail, with second. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, as part of our downtown infrastructure improvements project, we have for council consideration tonight a series of revenue bonds to be paid from budgeted stormwater fees collected from our customers. These bonds are for an amount not to exceed $2.5 million and will allow us to pay for the cost of engineering, design, and construction of certain improvements to our stormwater infrastructure, primarily in the downtown area, as well as administrative costs for bond legal counsel and financial management. City Council approved the ordinance on first reading at the October 9th meeting. For council consideration, a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of stormwater system revenue bonds not in the principal amount not to exceed $2,500,000, the City of Aiken, South Carolina, and other matters relating thereto. And we have Attorney Gary Pope here to answer any questions that you may have.
Good evening.
I'll be happy to answer any questions council has. Otherwise, I believe between that summation and David's discussion earlier that pretty much covers it.
All right. Thank you. If there's any questions come up, we'll certainly. Thank you for being here.
I don't have any questions regarding the interest rate or the amount of the bond, but only a question to ask. Is Michelle Jones?
Yes.
Jones, regarding the territory that this is going to cover, it's the downtown area. Where does it start with this infrastructure?
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Of course, we've got the downtown infrastructure improvements, which we're defining as Phase 1. We've got 1A and 1B for the stormwater improvements, and it's bounded by, of course, Richland, Park Avenue, Newberry, and Lawrence Streets for our downtown core. And then we're also proposed, and that's the majority of the cost. Then we have Parsons Circle, stormwater repair and replacement that's proposed, as well as Kennedy Colony. And we've added McCormick Street, where we had a recent
incident
repair.
Okay.
Want to make sure we get that done as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle. All right. Comments from the audience? Further comments or questions from council?
Nice to get started.
It's nice to get started. Well said. All those in favor? And that's unanimous. David, Gary, thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. Moving down to number 3 under old business. This is a second reading and public hearing of an ordinance approving the sale of 911 Murrah Avenue to Corey Osteen. By title, an ordinance approving the sale of 911 Murrah Avenue to Corey Osteen. Is there a motion?
I so move.
We have a motion, Ms. Diggs. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a second. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, as you know, in January 2014, the City Council purchased 911 Murrah Ave as part of a plan to extend Christie Place into the rear of the public shopping center. The property was annexed into the city of May 2014. The property was originally approved for sale by the council in 2015, but the buyer asked to have his bid for $32,000 withdrawn. We recently listed the property for sale through our realtor partner with a listed price of $25,000. If council approves the sale, we will replat the existing .7 acre parcel into 2 parcels, one parcel owned by the city and one owned by the buyer. We received 8 offers for the property. The staff recommendation is that we accept the cash offer of $31,000 to Corey Osteen. Proceeds the city derives from the sale will be deposited into capital project sales tax 2. City Council approved this ordinance on first reading on October 9th. For council consideration, the second reading and public hearing of an ordinance approving the sale of 911 Mora Ave to Corey Osteen.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. Comments from the audience?
Yes.
Okay. Kurt, good evening.
Honorable Mayor, council members, my name's Kurt Giddings. I think you asked for the address, 2050 Cullum Trail Road, Aiken, South Carolina. As I'm speaking, if you don't mind, I'd like to pass just a couple photos. I'm speaking of a matter of the heart. You already know a lot of the information that I'm going to tell you, but I typed it out here so I could just kind of not lose track of what I want to say. My wife, Susan Waldrop Giddings, several of you in the room may know her. She was on county council for a couple terms a few years back. Susan was born and raised in this house. Her mother passed away at age 6, and her father worked at the Savannah River plant, and he worked shift work. He remarried at age 12, at her age of 12, in 1968. He passed away in November of 2012. Susan, we were notified by her stepmother in December of 13 that the property was going to be sold to the city of Aiken for the purpose of, as Mr. Clem mentioned, extending Christie Place on through into the public shopping center to, I guess, ease traffic concerns off Doherty Road. She didn't have any say or given an opportunity for any discussion with the stepmother about the sale of her lifetime home. She contacted the then current city manager, who was Richard Pierce at the time, about going to the house to look outside for special items, and told that was okay to do that. Later, again, Susan contacted the then city manager, which is Roger LeDuc, about going to the house, inside the house, to look for any sentimental items, because she didn't have the opportunity to do this with her situation. And that was arranged. She did that. At the time, she expressed interest at that time in buying the house from the city. The house was growing up. At the time, it looked bad. So she expressed interest in buying the house from the city as the actual house property, would not interfere with the placement of Christie Place extension through the property. The house was going to be torn down. That was what the city had planned at the time. Preps had already been made. They punched holes in the walls and the floors, took samples for environmental concerns, asbestos hazards. The electrical wiring had been cut, stripped out of the house. The AC heat pump had been removed from the house, etc. Then the city manager, Roger LeDuc, told Susan to send a letter stating why she wanted the house and that it would probably suffice, just the letter itself. The city would benefit from this now by receiving some tax revenue from the property, and the property being kept up as far as it had grown up very badly, as I mentioned. The next thing Susan was told was that there was going to be a bid process, but not given any guidance of how the process would work or the requirements or a minimum amount required for a bid. She did turn in a bid to Ms. Rideout for $911. It sounds like a small amount compared to what we're talking about, but it was a sentimental thing. There was an address was 911 Murray Avenue. Didn't think the money was really an issue. Since she had already been told that, the letter was probably all she needed, which she had submitted. At some point later, it was found out the bid of $32,000 had been accepted by the city, only to later be pulled back. Probably, in our thoughts, because there wasn't anything in the paper about that, because the city couldn't get approval to go into the public shopping center with the road. don't know that, but that's just an assumption. And the original purpose, of course, for the purchase of the property was to do that. And maybe it just turned out that it maybe wasn't going to be a wise investment, maybe, don't know why the bid was pulled out. But the city never contacted, Susan being one of the bidders for the property, we were never contacted about the possibility of putting another bid in, for the property, or that there was apparently found out later a minimum bid of $25,000 required. So at the time, when she first expressed interest in the house, like I said, there was zero interest in the house. City Manager Roger LeDuc later and recently in September, on a Saturday, the real estate sign went in the front yard. We found out about it, and so we called the real estate. My wife called the real estate office, and and the lady she talked to there wasn't aware of really what was going on, but she said, I'll check on it. Called back a couple hours and said that it was a bid process, and the bids were due by Monday at 3 o'clock. That seemed pretty quick, but that's what we had. So she submitted a bid on Monday of $27,911, and 911 again on the address. And was told later the same day that a bid of $31,000 had won out. And I noticed on the agenda item number 3 in the contract of the sale of the house, on the purchase price, I don't know if you can put that up on the screen, but it had $26,000 on the offer sheet, which was struck through, not initial or dated, $31,000 written beside it, and the $26,000 is still printed out on the right-hand side of that. It almost appears that somebody knew that they need to bump the bid up a little bit to get it above, the bid that maybe we put in or somebody else put in. I don't know that, but that's just kind of odd how that looks on that contract sheet.
Kurt, what was your bid again?
Excuse me?
What was your bid?
$27,911. And the original, like I said, on the offer sheet, here's $26,000. So, my opinion, and I know we're at where we're at today. That's reality. But this is going back to the beginning of this process when it started. It seems to have been inconsistent. It didn't go to a realtor initially. It went to a bid process. And it wasn't even really being considered to be sold initially. It was going to be torn down. So it just doesn't seem like it's been a real fair process. And I don't know. The only thing I'm asking, can ask, and that's all I can do up here is, ask it to be pulled from the agenda and reconsidered for a more fair process for it. That's it. And I appreciate y'all's time. Listen, I'm nervous. And
thank you.
Thank you very much.
For being here. Stuart. Can you speak to the bid process on
the second time?
Yes.
Yes, we listed the property with Aiken Properties. They did a market or an analysis and estimated the value because it had been prepared for demolition and testing at $25,000. And in order to move forward on this, because this property had sat and the city was having to maintain it, we put a time frame in 3 o'clock on the given day, and we took bids and received 8 bids, and accepted the highest bid that was offered to the city through the real estate agent.
Is there anything scratched through on, I don't have that background, so.
That's correct. On page 97, there was an initial bid of $26,000 with a revised bid of $31,000.
Did the The revision came in?
The revision came in before the deadline, and I will say I was not directly involved in that process, so I can't speak to the, why the bid was revised upward, but it came in before the deadline.
Why is the October crossed out and November put in there?
That's the closing date, because we had to go to 2 readings through council. So initially, we were going to try to do the closing, I guess, in October, but it's been changed to November because of the second reading. Initially, we were not going to have, I guess, a second meeting in October, and we added this second meeting to October 30th.
What was the original closing date on the bids?
The original closing date on the bids, I don't recall. Emery, I know, was the point person, and if she could come in terms of the closing date. September 15th, it looks like.
I'm sorry, give me just a second. It was on September 18th.
3 p.m. on September 18th.
And Aiken Properties were handling these bids, is that what you're saying?
Emily, was anyone, the bids that came in, were they, I guess they were open bids, or?
What happened, when we listed this with Aiken Properties, it hit the multiple listing service, and they started getting inquiries pretty fast and furious.
Sure.
Our real estate partners suggested that we take the best and final bid by 3 o'clock. That was that Monday. And so my understanding is that it was amended, and I believe there's a notation of 12/25 of when Ms. Osteen changed her price. But that was on the recommendation of our real estate partner, because we had so much interest on that property.
Well, were all the bidders advised that there was a $31,000 bid at 12:35 if you're closing at 3 o'clock?
I can't speak to that. What I know is that the people who were interested were advised that their best and final offer needed to be in by 3 o'clock.
What concerns me, I've got a little background in competitive bidding. Why is the $26,000 crossed out? What led that individual to understand his 26 was not enough, that there was a higher bid?
I believe Ms. Osteen is in the audience, and she can probably answer that question better than I.
Okay. Good evening, Ms. Osteen.
So I was the second bidder, and I had spoken with them, and I asked them, do you have other offers coming in? And they said, we might have 1 or 2. So I bid on a Friday, and then on Monday, I called back and I said, what's the situation? Are there more offers? They said, yes, we have 7 offers at that point. And so I said, okay, well, I really want to get this. And so I want to up my bid then, because I want to make sure. And they did say exactly what she had said, that to give your very best offer by 3 o'clock, because they were making the decision at 3 o'clock. So I crossed it out, and then at whatever time I wrote myself there, that's when I went and put in my highest bid that I was willing to pay. And then I was told that the person who had spoken, they came in last. So I heard the story, and it was heart-wrenching. So, but yeah, that's exactly how there's 2 different prices.
Did someone intimate to you what the high bid was at the time that you had to raise it?
Not at all. I just knew that I had to go higher when there was that many bids, because I wanted to make sure that I had the best chance. So I went to my top price that I was willing to pay.
So, we're hearing that the Giddings had the lowest bid of them all. Is that what you're
Oh, I don't know what anybody else's bid, except for hearing it today. Now I'm aware of what their bid was, but I didn't know what anybody else's bid was. I just made my bid higher because I was only competing against one other person at the time when I put my bid in. So by the time I heard that there were 7 other bidders, that's when I came back and put another bid in that was higher.
Stuart, may you address the bidding? Is this the lowest bid, the 27,911? Was that the lowest bid?
No, we had at least one, if not 2 bids for the bare or the floor price of $25,000.
Okay. And any others close to 30?
I would have to look at the list. I think Emery's got it in the file. Okay. The next highest was $28,102.
Okay.
And then we had a $28,000 and then the $27,911.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Epstein.
Okay. I wanted to say a couple words, but I didn't expect for this to be the situation. So,
no, sure.
I felt really bad. I don't know what to say in the situation. I just wanted to share, first of all, thank you for accepting my offer. This is a very awkward situation right now, but anyways, I just wanted to share because I had written the letter that I'm a board member of Recovery Road Ministries, and I wanted to make it perfectly clear that this was a sale separate unto itself, not of the doings of Recovery Road Ministries. But what we were planning on doing with the house is I'm hoping to be able to obtain houses around town that are small and inexpensive so that we can eventually, hopefully, transition people who've completed our alcohol and drug addiction recovery program successfully into so that they can continue within our ministry through Millbrook. This particular house, we have 2 to 3 young ladies that will be graduating a program called Faith Home that's in Abbeville for drug and alcohol addiction, one of which is our daughter, and 2 of them for sure are graduating November 25th. And so the hope was that we'd be able to rehabilitate the home and have them in it so that they can continue through our program through Millbrook, closely related to our pastor, who's going to be the director of Recovery Road when it's actually established in place. We will be opening Recovery Road Ministries in Aiken County in the very beginning of the year, January, where right now we're working on securing our location. And so the other thing I wanted to offer was we're going to be the first residential drug and alcohol treatment facility in Aiken County. And so I'm hoping that everybody would be able to attend the ribbon cutting when we do open. So that was all my comments, and I'm not sure, I don't know how to react to that. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Osteen.
Mr. Mayor, what I want to add to Ms. Osteen, though this is not an issue that you need to apologize for. It is one that we have to work with the process to ensure that Mr. Giddings, wherever your bid process stood, that there is no doubt that you would know, or anybody else, whether you're bidding for more properties or not in our town. But it should be a flawless process, and that's what we strive to do. So that's there's no need for you to apologize for submitting.
I did hear the story after, and it really, I mean, I lived in my grandparents' home and remodeled it, and so, I mean, I understand, and I don't really know what to say, but I do understand.
All right. Thank you.
But a noble effort that you're trying to do at Millbrook.
Any other comments, audience? Comments or questions from council? Okay, those in favor on second reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. And Ms. Osteen, congratulations. Moving down to item 4, new business. Number 1, this is approval of a resolution to pursue possible defined contribution plans. Is there a motion?
I so move.
Second.
A motion and a second. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, and through you to the members of the council. As you know, we had a very informative workshop recently where an alternative long-range pension plan was presented. There were many questions by the council. It was stated that we should make sure we take an adequate amount of time to review this. This wasn't about making a fast decision, it was about making the right decision. At the end of the hearing, and I replayed it last night just to make sure that our memory was factual, we were asked by you, Mr. Mayor, along with Mr. Ebner, to come forward with a resolution which indicated a path forward. And so that is why there was some discussion about whether there should be a resolution or whether there should be an ordinance. There was a decision to make it a resolution. But I think one of the intents of presenting an initial resolution tonight is to act, for all intents and purposes, as first reading. There are some decision points that have to be made if you do want to go forward, and we listed those in the resolution. There are probably many others, but these are the major ones. What are the eligibility criteria going to be for new employees? What is the appropriate employee and city contribution rates? What about the vesting schedule for plan participants? Options for current employees to leave the existing defined benefit plan. We had originally made a recommendation that folks under 35 or under a certain number of years of service be given the option of going to the defined contribution or staying with the defined benefit plan. So we present tonight, as requested, a simple resolution that would suggest that there is enough merit to move forward with the clear understanding there needs to be at least one more workshop, if not more, with our experts come back and we start rolling up our sleeves and delving into this and answer the million-and-one questions that you may have about this plan's design before a vote's taken. Now, it was also stated that we have some parameters in terms of goals, and it was stated at the workshop that we try to get something in place by 31 December. That's a goal. We don't necessarily have to begin implementation of this in January of 18. It could be July 1st of 18. We don't know what kind of questions the new council are going to have. We've forwarded information to them in terms of the minutes and the documents to the potential or the new council members because they'll ultimately have to take a vote. So we put forward a path. We were asked to put a path forward, and that's what this is. We're hoping that by December 31st, we've had enough workshops and information that you can make a decision on this. If you don't, you don't. If we need to go into January and February next year, we do. But this is a resolution to get us a path going forward, and we'll see where it goes from there.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council?
Yeah, I was initially concerned with the resolution, but having read the resolution, it's fine. We need more work sessions. I think Werner Anthony said he would give us a list of questions that we needed to ask, and it's critical that we have those. I had asked finance for a couple of pieces of information, the median pension and a list of, not by name, but high to low on the current people receiving pensions. I still have some serious questions on the funding. I mean, I'm going to need expert help to understand them, but this thing, I mean, we're not going to get any money out of it the first year. We're going to get very little out of it the second year, and so forth. So I hope we do have another work session. The sooner the better, quite frankly.
We would turn to you in terms of availability of dates. We have assembled a very impressive team.
Yes.
We want to get the actuary back, the lawyers back, and whatever, and just, there's no set, we'll have one, and if we need 3 more, we'll have 3 more until, I mean, this is an important vote, and you absolutely need to make sure you understand it, you know exactly what it says, and so I'm pleased that you're digging into this, and we commit to you that there's no, we're setting a goal of December 31st, but if we're not ready, we're not ready.
Well, next Tuesday, we'll know for sure the makeup of the new council, and they can come on a volunteer basis. I hope they do. I see one with us tonight, and there's two of them tied up in a debate, and I don't know. But we need to move quickly on this, because I've been after this for 10 years, so I'd like to see it happen if we can make it happen. Thank you.
I have a couple of comments, and I sent them in to the city manager. I expressed my concern before about the city paying for the plan expenses. And I understand what was said from the record keeper, for the first, they said 5 years, which 5 years or so, that they'll need some kind of funding to get it set up, and within 5 years you would have a certain number of employees based on our past experience. So I can accept that. But one of these work sessions, and obviously they'll be after I'm off council, but I think that estimated cost needs to come in. We sit here and listen to the people that have done these, and they should be able to come in with what does it cost to set up the plan, because the first year you got $0 obviously to deal with. The second thing is, and Warner, I forgot his last name.
Anthony.
Warner Anthony had mentioned that he could take out which is page 163, item F in our current agenda, the ability for either the committee or the trust to borrow money. That's just a problem. And that can be a long-term problem, because the money could get borrowed, and then first thing you know, we're a bunch of money in the hole. So that's two concerns. The other thing that I had asked about, I don't know if Ms. Abney has the answer, but what is our current cost for our total employees that are either participants or in the plan as employees today or retired? And I'd come up with a number, and I don't know if my number was right or not, if she had time to look at that.
You can ask Ms. Abney if she would come up.
Yeah, and I based that on the 2016, June 30th, 2016 audit, so I could be a year out of date, obviously.
Good evening, Kim.
Hello. Yes, sir. When you asked me to forward it to Mr. Anthony, I did do that. I have not heard back from him yet. I will follow up with him this week. The numbers that you refer to in the audit include the cost that the city pays our contribution into the pension plan, okay? And that's calculated by the actuary, the Van Epter phone from Milliman. And then the administrative cost is what is taken from the plan assets to pay the Morgan Stanley and CCM managing that money. The city doesn't pay that administrative cost. It comes out of the cost of the plan.
Okay.
And then we also pay, of course, the people receiving their pension out of the plan.
It just had parentheses around both the numbers when it got to the bottom line. The 590,000 said for service costs, but that comes out of the plan?
No, the 590,000 service cost, and Warner's going to explain this in like all the legalese terms, but that's basically the contribution that we make for the people who work here.
All right, so that's
our service, if you will, for the year, and then there's also an actuarial contribution for the people who are already retired.
Yeah, I'm being a layman, service cost to me means something we paid for. Then the other one said the $214,000 was administrative expense.
That's the cost for the maintenance of the account. So the fact that we have Morgan Stanley and CCM advisors, they do get fees as you would pay any banking fees, even though it's not a bank account.
So actually the cost of operating the plan is the $214,000 plus the local labor that's with staff included in that.
The cost that comes out of the plan for what you call operating costs, the fees to the CCM and Morgan Stanley, is called administrative costs. The cost to have a pension plan includes the contribution, the $1.2 million that the city budgets and puts into the plan. Of that, about half, or the $590,000 in that particular audit period that you refer to, is the service cost for the employees that still work here, our service for that year. The other, more or less half, 600,000, is for the retirees.
I'd like to recommend that we, whenever we have the
Well, I was
experts
trying to
here.
get to a number that would help me up here where what the 5-year cost would be is what comes out of the city coffers on a per month basis per participant, whether they're retired or active.
I understand, I just don't know that we can get it tonight.
Well, that's okay, but there's got to be a number because the future record keeper's got to have a number to work from, and I just thought we needed something to compare it to.
You'll get that to us,
And as soon as
Kim.
I get your actual definitive legal answer from Mr. Anthony, I will forward that to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It says the employees, the new employees are going to be contributing 6% of their pre-tax dollars into the benefit plan? Or
The 6%, if that's the decision that council makes, would be a pre-tax contribution, so.
And the city matches that $1 for $1?
Percent, if that's the decision council makes.
Will they have an option to do like 4%, and will the city just match that 4%? It's got to be 6. Okay.
Whatever council decides, the percent
Yeah.
has to be
whatever it is, yeah.
stated. So we couldn't say, you know, if you want to do 4 and you want to do 6, it would be a mandatory contribution, whatever council decides.
All right, thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim.
Any other comments from council at this time? Okay, all those in favor of approval of a resolution to pursue possible defined contribution plan at this time? That's unanimous. Thank you. Number 2 under new business. This is a first reading of an ordinance to annex and zone property at 433 East Pine Log Road owned by Charita Grant.
Mayor.
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a second. Comments from the audience? Comments from council? Okay, all those in favor? And that's unanimous. Thank you. I like that, Ms. Price. Number 3 is first reading of an ordinance to rezone property at 103 Thomas Street to office institutional, or O. Is there a motion? Motion and a second. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, the applicant and owners are requesting that the property at 103 Thomas Street and Silver Bluff Estates be rezoned from residential single-family to office. Pending approval of the rezoning request, the applicant plans to purchase the property and open a hair salon. The Planning Commission at their October 10th meeting considered the request. After reviewing, the Planning Commission unanimously recommended to Council that the property be rezoned to office institutional. For City Council consideration is first reading of an ordinance to rezone property at 103 Thomas Street from residential single-family to office institutional.
Comments from the audience? Comments from council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think we all received a copy of a letter from our potentially future member of council in whose district this would be, objecting to changing the zoning and feeling it should stay residential. So I don't mind approving it for first reading, but I'm not likely to approve it for second without additional comment. So, in fact, we may even want to continue the second reading until assuming Mr. Wolf wins, until he assumes office.
Very good. For that.
Also, I think it would be wise to get a little history about all of the homes in this area on Silver Bluff. It's a Duke's mixture of in the city, in the county. A lot of those houses are turning into businesses. If you look down what's on Silver Bluff, there's very few residences that are left there. And as the estates get sold out. So I think it'd be worth burdening the planning director to take a look at that and talk to the county a little bit about their policies. because well, the county is changing from residents to businesses along the street as well as some of the side streets. So I think that would be good information for council to know as you look forward to the other changes. Thank you.
Very good. What was the planning commission's vote on the recommendation to this?
They voted unanimous approval.
Unanimous.
I would agree with both the comments made. I'm willing to move it forward on first reading, but I'd like some more input from the neighborhood and before a second reading.
Okay.
But we haven't heard from any other residents in that area, anybody else? Only one we heard from was Ed Welch.
I haven't heard from any.
Yeah, that's the only one, yeah.
I haven't heard from any. So. Good evening, Ryan.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Council. So no, we hadn't heard any additional comments from anybody in the neighborhood. The county does allow rather flexible zoning in their portion of the neighborhood, so a number of the residents, including two that were across the street, had been historically commercial properties that are residential in appearance. So a couple of those items, and we had not received any comment other than from the applicant at the Planning Commission meeting.
Sure.
There's a business right across the street from this. It's been there for at least 10 to 12 years.
All right, all those in favor on first reading? And that's unanimous. Thank you. 4 and 5 were items were pulled from the agenda.
We'll continued.
Continued.
City Attorney, we have to continue these or they won't be on the next agenda.
They were continued.
All right, continue. Thank you for the point of order.
But it may not be in the next agenda anyway. The letter I read said until further notice.
That's right.
Which is continuing.
Well, we got to be careful. If we drop it, is that a year's delay or is it they can just resubmit?
No, if it's pulled, you can consider it
until it's recalled.
It's the same. But continued is fine.
Sure, this has come up before. All right. So it's removed. No vote required on continued. Do we have to vote to remove it from the agenda? Or
You've already voted. You voted to continue at the beginning of the meeting.
4 and 5, items 4 and 5 were continued at the beginning of the meeting. Moving down to number 6, this is first reading of an ordinance amending the property maintenance code by title and ordinance amending section 10-4 of the Aiken City Code regarding dwelling unfit for human habitation, boarded structures, and property maintenance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, as you know, we have been working over the last several months with entities, neighborhood groups from around the city and the Aiken Council of Neighborhoods to come up with amendments to our city code regarding property maintenance and boarded up structures. As you know, we have consistently been receiving complaints from many areas around the city that feel that the city has not been responsive enough, that our ordinances are not comprehensive enough to answer some issues that really impact the quality of life in some of our neighborhoods. So we had a hearing, a workshop that was very well attended, where we invited 3 cities from around South Carolina that have been cited as model communities to see what has worked and what hasn't worked in their communities. Very informative workshop. And from that, we asked our legal staff to draft some ordinances for our consideration that would be responsive to some of the concerns that have been raised by our citizens. We offer tonight a draft and would like to consider it a first reading, really for the purpose of getting a draft document onto the record that people can respond to. It is our recommendation, and working closely with the Aiken Council of Neighborhoods, that we have at least one more workshop, if not more, allowing additional input. We certainly want to hear from people that own rental units, because it is not anyone's desire to implement onerous regulations that are going to penalize the good landlords that exist in our city, and there are many. But we have a considerable amount of neighborhoods around the city that are really asking us to strengthen our ordinances and our staff to be more responsive. So that's, we didn't present this tonight to have a lot of discussion or debate. We just wanted to get a document onto the record. If you so choose to approve this in first reading, I would ask our friends from the Aiken Council of Neighborhoods to continue to work with us as sponsors of at least one more workshop so that we can get as much input as possible before we bring this back for second reading for your consideration.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any comments from the audience? Okay. Mr. Young, good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I want to take just a moment and thank you for tackling a subject that I know is touchy. It's a subject that directly affects me. It directly affects a number of people in this community. And I'm glad to see that the City Council has stepped up and said something needs to be done. The Aiken Council of Neighborhoods stands behind you in tackling this and is willing to work with you in any way we can. We had 3 excellent presenters at our workshop that presented some ideas that, quite frankly, may be a little bit outside of the box. And I would recommend that you consider a pilot program to enhance some of these ordinances that have been presented. I just think the time has come when we need to get something in the works. It doesn't need to be immediate. It needs to be right when it's presented and approved. We don't need to find ourselves in the same position we're in now with ordinances that just don't meet the needs of the citizens. We will work with you. We will do whatever we can, and by we, I'm referring to the Council of Neighborhoods. So thank you for your time.
Gary? Gary?
Yes.
Is Hounds Lake Neighborhood Association part of your group?
I'm sorry?
Okay, Hounds Lake Neighborhood Association.
It is.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just had 2 quick comments on it.
Yes,
I know
sir.
we don't want to have a lot of discussion, but I don't see vehicles here.
There, I saw,
Is it here someplace that I missed it?
I think I remember seeing it in that one or the next one.
It was in the original ordinance. The original ordinance about probably 2010 was 2 specific things, vehicles and furniture in the yard.
Exactly.
I mean,
It was either this one or,
Well, I mean, just take the comment that vehicles and I didn't think of furniture in the yard, that needs to be in here. And then the next item, we're going to talk about the rental units. I have a couple of questions on that as well, but that's all I had. We need to have vehicles and furniture in the yard covered.
I think the other thing, that there was several comments during the work session, that, you know, there's the plans we looked at, even though one of them was only about a year into it, they were working, and they hadn't been challenged in court, but they were working. So we want to be sure we don't water something down that is working.
Very good. All right, all those in favor of first reading? That's unanimous, thank you. 7, this is a first reading of an ordinance to amend the city code regarding rental registration and licensing of residential rental units. Is there a motion?
I don't know.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, the hour is getting late. The comments that I have for this are the same as the previous comments. We're working with the Council of Neighborhoods in the area of licensing of residential rental units. There are some issues that need further review, whether there's going to be a fee. Some people are in favor of it, some people are against it, some people want to have the first inspection free, and then it needs to be follow-up, then charge for the follow-up. And so there's still some issues that need to be vetted. But we would want to have a hearing, just like the other issue, to kind of get more input on this.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any comments from the audience? Yes, sir. Good evening.
My name is, sorry. My name is William Moore. My wife and I own a number of rental properties in the city of Aiken, primarily the downtown historic district. We're very much in favor of this proposal. A few things I'd like to say in that regard. There might be, this is a technical issue, it's not a big deal to me, but I just happened to notice it. In terms of the windows, as I say, it's relatively minor, but it could come up in inspections. It requires that all windows, if I read it correctly, all windows need to be operable. If that includes every single window and every single house, there'll be a collision in that regard with the historic board, because a lot of the historic properties do not have windows that are optional or operable, but nevertheless they're required to keep those because they're historical windows. Sure. So there could be a collision in terms of that enforcement. It should be clarified, I think, for the inspector and for people who have historic properties, as we do. In a number of cases, like in our case, we have windows that were never operable, could not be made operable, but in terms of the historic preservation, we were asked to keep the windows even so. That does not include a bathroom window. That always has to be operable, and even in the case of a historic property. So all of our bathrooms have either a window or an active electrical ventilation system. So I think that's the basic code. I don't think building code requires every single window to be operable in any case. So that may be what you wish for, but as I say, you'll have to adjust. You'll have to figure out some kind of a way to either make an exception or require the window to be replaced in terms of historic buildings. Okay, that's just a technical.
Because those windows were painted shut.
They're painted shut.
Right.
Yeah, and extremely so in some cases, and there've been warping, expansion, contraction, and so to replace them is to ruin them, is to destroy them. So that's not necessarily something that comes up every day, but it will come up certainly in our properties. There's a few windows that we were specifically requested to not change. I offered to change them because they're not very energy efficient. But there's discussion on that people have accommodated that. There's a back and forth. So it's something to keep in mind as you go forward with it. As I say, I think it does exceed normal code. As I say before, in the bathroom, it must be an operable window or have a ventilation system. Sure. But elsewhere, it doesn't. I don't think normal building code for an historic building in particular does not require every single window to be operable. So that's just food for thought. It's not a big deal. I have basically the same comment on this as I would have had if there had been more time, if it had been more serious, in terms of your demolition. And that is, thankfully, you have a great deal of new staff in the city that's going to be looking at this. In past years, there was a great deal, an absolute great deal of spotty treatment of this. There were some properties, because I believe now that currently there is a demolition by neglect clause that's in effect now. And in my experience, maybe bitter experience, that was only enforced in the breach. Very rarely was there really pressure put on somebody. There are a number of historic properties and nice properties all over the city that some attention should be given to that are being demolished by neglect. And they've been around by definition, they've been around a long time. And there's some important buildings that have been demolished through demolition by neglect. And there was a great deal of attention and time given to that. I personally was involved in some of those discussions. And I don't want to rehash the past. I'm not trying to be resentful. But assurances were given to me personally that the building would be preserved under any circumstances, and they were not. They were not. Other people were given the same instructions. If you want to buy this property, that's fine, but you're going to have to restore this building, and this building, and this building, and and preserve trees, and preserve this, and do this, and before you know it, the whole place is flattened. It's very frustrating. If the ordinances are enforced fairly and across the board with transparency, that's fantastic. if we go back to where exceptions are made, sort of, I'm not in any respect accusing anybody, even in the past, of corruption or anything like that, but it's just a matter of concentration. It's a matter of being straight with everybody that walks in the door, no matter who they are. There should not be exceptions or carve-outs. Everybody should play by the same rules. It should be highly transparent. It should be highly transparent. In terms of various neighborhoods, there are beautiful buildings in every neighborhood in town, and there should be transparent discussions on how best to preserve it, what's best for the community, what kind of uses they should have. It should not be done in secret. And because other people can be involved in it, there are churches, there are preservation-minded people in town who are interested in this stuff. And if it's done in secret, nobody has a chance to come out and say, hey, maybe we have a better idea.
Mr. Ward, I think you'll find that this council agrees with what you're saying, and there will be certainly open transparency. But what we have found on this particular issue is that it's not one neighborhood, one side of town. It affects all the neighborhoods. That's why we have the council on neighborhoods are so far behind, involved in this process. But I can tell you, just listen to the passion of your speech. I think you certainly would be an asset to us to work on this and make sure the product we have
there are certainly historic buildings in town right now that absolutely are being demolished by neglect.
Yes, sir. Well, I'm going
to. We need to put the word out. There has to be. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you, Mayor. I do feel passionate. I appreciate your kind remarks. I really am trying to make an impression here because I've held my. I think John knows I've held my voice on this. Sure. And I have not tried to go public with it. I don't want recriminations. I don't want to divide the community. But if we're going to do this now, let's do it right. And let's don't come up with this sounds a little bit cynical, and I don't mean it to. But if we come up with a whole bunch of new, beautiful sounding regulations and rules and ordinances and all the rest, and they're not observed except in the breach, it'll be worse than where we are even now.
Well, we would not have brought it up at this point if it wasn't a passion for everybody on this council.
There's a truth, though, and I know firsthand about the quality landlord that this gentleman is, and I have heard many of the experiences. Mr. Moore and his wife should be receiving awards from the city, and if I don't think there's one person in this city that could help us more if your busy schedule allows. I don't know if you know Beth and Gary Yount behind you, but if we can impose upon you one more time, I don't think that there's another person in this city that knows more about being a quality landlord and knows more about old buildings. If you look at some of his work and his wife's work, they are stunning in terms of the value of what they've done, and I hope that we can call upon you once again to help us draft ordinances that make sense.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, let me just add that I've known Bill and Simi for more than 30 years, and what an attribute they have been to this town. So you're on the committee whether you want to be or not, and so is Simi. And but we need your input.
All right. And the same principle will go with this landlord registration. This will affect us directly, and we are in favor of it. We are in favor of it. The only thing is with the big note here that we don't want to. We and a few other landlords don't want to be the only ones in town that are subject to it. Right. You can come and investigate my stuff all day long. It can be the model for what you have. It's great. We're in favor of it. Because there are some stinko landlords in this town I can tell you the experiences that I've heard of where the bug inspector man has to clean the house before he can even walk in the door. There's some real scandals in terms of rentals. And if you can do something to make a dent on that so people don't have to live in those conditions, that's great. But it shouldn't just fall on the people who are trying to do something.
Right. There are multiple concerns, and we're aware of those concerns. We just need your input.
Because I have to say, in past years, the door only opens when somebody tries to do something, and then the whole furies, the whole nature of the universe falls on that person who's actually trying to make some improvements. Meanwhile, next door, I hear this from we're okay on that too, but people will tell me and next door the house is falling down. They don't say anything about that, and that is people don't come in and complain about it, and maybe they should do it more.
All I can tell you is those days are over.
Yeah.
I mean,
But let's
we can
use this as an
rehash it,
opportunity
but-
to make sure that it's a transparent process and it's done, across the board. And if one person, even if a person only has one house, it can disrupt a street, right?
Absolutely.
It could become a center for criminal activity.
Right, it's all
and
those things.
demoralize the rest of the neighborhood. And so even just one house.
Yes, sir.
So if the inspector focuses in on people that have 10 houses or 5 houses and blah, 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 or somebody that just took out a new building permit, let the building inspector handle that. But the chief city inspector should be running around here and trying to address some of these tremendous problems that we have in the city.
And we're trying to give him the tools to do that now.
Okay.
I mean, you're spot on. You're spot on.
Okay.
And you're hired, so.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments and your passion.
Get his business card, Gary.
Yeah, that's- Any other comments from the audience? Comments from council?
I think we've heard it all
I
said.
think that was well said, absolutely. All right, all those in favor on first reading? And that's unanimous, thank you. Moving down to numeral 5, petitions and requests. Number 1 is a request for approval of a resolution to provide city water service to 1209 Banks Mill Road. Is there a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Comments from staff?
Mr. Mayor, the applicant and owners are requesting city water service to 1209 Banks Mill Road. They propose to renovate an existing residential dwelling into office and showroom space for Carolina Carpentry and Chris John Tile. It is also anticipated that the renovated building will house a salon. They also intend to build a warehouse and workspace in futures Phase 2 and 3 of the site. The Planning Commission reviewed the request and unanimously recommended the provisions of water service to 1209 Banks Mill Road with the conditions as listed in the agenda. For City Council consideration is first reading of an ordinance to provide city water service to 1209 Banks Mill Road with the conditions recommended by the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Clem. Any comments from the audience? Comments from council? All those in favor? Very good. With council's consent, after conferring with the attorney, I'd like to ask that we consider 2 through 6, which we'll have to read, but we can consider those with one vote, if council doesn't mind on that.
Yes.
Okay. Number 2 is a request to hang Christmas in Hopelands and Christmas craft show banners in the downtown area. Number 3 is a request for permission to place banners in the downtown area to promote St. Thaddeus Home and Garden Tour. Number 4 is a request by Heart Association for permission to place red ribbons in the downtown area to promote Heart Month. Number 5 is a request to place banners in the downtown area promoting Joy in Aiken 2018 Festival. And number 6 is a request from Energy Environmental Committee to hang banners in the downtown promoting Earth Day. Is there a motion?
I move, accept approval, Mr. Mayor.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the audience? Yes, absolutely. Good evening.
Good evening. Y'all have me up late tonight. Just a point of clarification on it. It appeared that a couple of them overlapped, and the requested places were the same. So I don't know how.
Okay.
He'll help you with it.
Okay.
Sure.
Now or later?
Later.
Okay.
Agreed. If we could, Mayor and Council, approve these and let us work with the petitioner to find those locations. I think that would be easier and more conducive to what they.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. No, thank you for your
And we may
comments.
need flexibility in dates as well.
That's correct.
I think that's what Joy in Aiken is looking for,
Yeah.
flexibility.
Did that help you, Mr. Absolutely.
Can I make a comment?
We have.
There's comments all over the place.
Hi, I'm Sandra Field, and first of all, let me
Hey,
thank
Sandra, good
Mr.
evening.
Mayor, Mr. Clem, and the City Council for your tremendous support. We couldn't do what we do without you. I just wanted to add that our request for the placement of banners also includes dyeing the fountains red during the week of the festival. So I just didn't want that to get missed in your vote.
Okay.
And I was assured that it could be done that red dye could be purchased, and we're happy to purchase that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's not, you're the only one asking for the red dye.
Sarah, did you have a comment?
On Friday afternoon, David Turner and I went over all of these requests for banners, and some of them do overlap, but he's got it all laid out on a calendar. And his request is that the requesters have said certain areas, but it may have to be a different direction. But we could accommodate all of these at the present time.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah. It's refreshing hearing from you. We don't normally hear from Sarah.
I think this is, I really think this is the first time in 2 years that I've actually let the minutes show that right out. Okay, thank you. All those in favor of these items, thank you for that, and thank you for your consent on handling it that way. Number 7 is a request by Councilman Duarte to discuss annexation policy for donuts holes. I'll recognize.
I had a question with regard to conditions that require annexation. The assessor's office drops to 6% down to 4% in the case of a senior passing away. But the title doesn't change because it's in probate. And I guess this frustration is the length of probate. Is that a defined period in state law?
8 months after the estate has been advertised for 3 weeks in a row. So the 8 months later, the estate that's the first time the estate can actually be closed, unless it's a short estate. And I'm not the expert on this, so don't hold me to all this, but it can be a lengthy process.
Well, I've always heard it could be as long as a year.
It can be, very easily.
Now, the question I guess I raise is, how does staff kind of stay on top of that?
Well, the title hasn't transferred. The title won't transfer until the estate is closed.
But when the title transfers, are we automatically notified?
Not necessarily.
I mean, it's a challenge. If we've got these properties that should be annexed per our policy, and we have no program.
Well, and I think I take that. I mean, the new customer, whoever the title transfers to, is going to have to come and get their account set up.
Got to get their water.
Yeah, well, they're going to get their water, but the property's still in probate.
Right. So we have like an interim step where they'll assign an acknowledgement of the policy form. They'll go on a log, and this is for a number of kind of similar cases like that. And we just, we have a staff person that researches that weekly to see which deeds on that log have been filed. So the property basically just gets searched every week or every other week to ensure that. And once we see the property transfer, then we approach the official new owner about either the annexation or annexation agreement.
But if they've already signed the annexation agreement, can't it go directly to Planning Commission?
If they sign an annexation agreement, the process still requires a Planning Commission hearing and
Oh, yeah, I understand, but I mean, what I thought I heard you say was when the title changes, you go back to the new owner.
Correct.
To apply.
Right.
But if they've already signed an annexation agreement to get the water, can't we go after we get the title, can't we go directly to Planning Commission?
Correct, yes. Yeah, so for those where an annexation would apply, we would send those, we would have the application at that point in hand and send them to the
We're requiring the annexation agreement to give the water.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm satisfied. I was just kind of confused.
No, certainly.
Thank you.
Ryan, thank you. Check that. Okay, it doesn't require any action. Number 8 was continued. Number 9 is request regarding the historical railroad cut. Is there a motion?
Well,
or is there actually?
I guess it's
Can we take action?
I mean,
we're in total agreement with Council Member Ebner that additional action is necessary. We're all in favor of this project. we're going to need up to an additional $250,000, and so we've outlined 3 options for your consideration. Use stormwater funding, use hospitality tax funding, and use accommodations tax funding. Probably hospitality makes the most sense, I think.
Well, we originally approved 520-something thousand somewhere, and I didn't research enough to find out where we took the original money, but one would think we would add it to that account unless it's empty. But I would say it ought to be on here because the letter said they wanted to award the contract January 1st of 2018. So we need 2 readings, correct, to do that? So we need to have it on both readings of the November council meeting. Okay, thank you.
We're in agreement. Okay.
Very good.
So we'll look for that on the next agenda. Thank you for catching that, Councilman Edmund. Number 10, actually. Number 10 was added to the agenda.
A little red-faced to bring this subject up because in my 10 years on council, I've only attended one city manager evaluation, and they really should be conducted on an annual basis. So.
This is a request for an executive session for the purpose of employee review for the city manager and city attorney at the November 17th city.
Well, I'd leave the date up to the city manager, Mr. Mayor, if you'd agree, because it may be better to do it earlier rather than just before the meeting, but as he controls the meeting agenda.
Sure.
I'll work with you on it.
Okay. We'll work on it.
He controls the meeting times, but not the agenda. We need to be sure that's stated.
Sure. Would you, with the request, if you'd like to make a motion?
I'll move that we schedule an executive session for the purposes of the annual evaluation of the city manager and the city attorney.
Very, very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Any discussion, audience? Discussion with council? All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, Councilman DeWar. Under information, anything for issues and updates?
I see we have Ed McMahon coming to the city in January. He gave an absolutely delightful lecture at the Municipal Association, and I hope this is well attended. It's going to be at the AECOM Theater on January 31st, and I'd recommend people come. He's just a marvelous speaker.
I wholeheartedly second that.
You're correct, sir. All right. Hearing no further comments, is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
We have a motion, second. All those in favor, please stand up.